So this one is a pot that I hand built. Started from a little circle and then built all the way up. And then I kind of drew the design all around. And then I carved it a little bit like a pumpkin, but with clay. But this is based on traditional pottery in Oaxaca, southern state of Mexico, where they carve out their pots. But this one I've made into a little lantern, so you can put a candle. I started by drawing a little picture of it. This is just a sketch, but it is pretty similar to what I ended up making. Both of these were made with Vulcan clay. So in Oaxaca they use traditionally black and red clay, but this is the closest that we have in this region of Birmingham. Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm Mexican American and I'm currently a music student. But I like to do pottery in my free time. I like to hand build things. It just takes all the time, all of my stresses out of my head when I do things with pottery, and I can be creative and make anything I can with mud, basically. Before coming to Birmingham, I searched up pottery studios because I was like, I have to keep doing this, right? And I found Sundragon in Bostle Heath. It was a little bit like figuring out what my place was there. And it was kind of like, are people looking at me? Are people curious as to what I'm doing? I don't really know what I'm doing. But very quickly, every member of the studio was super friendly and welcoming, and they were really helpful if I had any questions, and each person has their different style in their pottery. So it was inspiring to see, people who do it professionally and it's their work, or people that do it for hobby and they come once every year and just make something, right? This is the wedged clay. I flatten it already just because if it's a ball, it takes longer to flatten on the slab machine. So now I'm going to cover it in 2 cloths so it doesn't stick to the table or the top of this. And I've got it at 1 inch. So I'm going to slowly put it through the machine. And it's going to flatten it bit by bit. So I started playing with clay in high school, and I really got interested in it, but I kind of use it as an excuse to get out of economics. So I would skip economics class 3 times each month and go to my pottery class. With that, it kind of became an obsession of, I'd go during economics class, I'd go after school, on top of music, and it just was a really big creative outlet for me. And yeah, it just made everything much more peaceful in my life. When I started doing pottery, it was things based on nature, just because I liked mimicking it, and it was easier for me to connect with nature and put it into my art. So the first things I made were mugs, and they were little wood house mugs, and it looked like vines on a tree, and then it had a little door, like a little gnome house, and those were the first things, and those were made out of slabs, and they were pretty simple to make. But it really wasn't until I moved to England where I started connecting more with my roots and my culture. Because I was born in the US, and I'm the only one in my family that's American, I felt really detached from Mexico itself. So coming over here, and there's not a big Mexican community, I started making these pots that were based on nature, but also the folklore of Mexico. So in one of my pieces, I've got monarch butterflies all around the pot. So each little figure is a wing, and the blue is the sky. monarch butterflies, they migrate from northern Mexico all the way up to Canada, and they come back. And when they come back in Michoacan, they die, but in the week of October, end of October and early November. In Mexico, we believe that the spirits of our loved ones return when the monarch butterflies come, and they die in the forest. So that's the week that we celebrate Day of the Dead. But monarch butterflies, they don't only represent the souls of our loved ones. They're also a really big staple for immigration and people just moving all around the world. And for me, my parents are immigrants. I'm also an immigrant to the UK, and so it's kind of a little testament to my family and Mexico, that pot. If I'm creating a new piece, I do start with drawing it out. And it's not on a specific journal, I just find a scrap piece of paper and I draw it out. I might look through Pinterest for a bit and get some inspiration on how I could shape it or what textures I can add to it. I start with the circle, always a circle for the base, and then I just keep building it up and copying the shape that's on the paper. You have to wait for each section of the pot to dry before you add the next one. So it's about managing your time, but it's all a process. And you get to see how it builds up and up and up. And then once I let it dry a bit, usually I carve some texture into it, or with the monarch butterflies, I paint it with underglaze and then carve that out to make it look like butterfly wings. I put it to dry and it goes into the kiln for a bisque firing. Comes out, then I glaze certain parts of it just to make it look a bit shiny, but not all of it. I still like the texture of raw clay. And then it goes again for another kiln firing, and it comes out darker and more vibrant. It's time for myself, because I'm always moving so fast and I say yes to too many things, and then it's just but when I go into the studio and I put my headphones on, it's my space, time for myself, and I get to make something. Even if it doesn't work out or if it explodes in the kiln, whatever, at least I took that time for myself. And if something comes from it, then I get even more happy.